So the last session for the next 25 minutes is around that other priority that's been stated by the UK presidency for COP26 and repeatedly stated throughout today, which is the role of finance within all of this. And specifically for us, we're really interested to hear about the role of potentially something that's very unusual in the United Kingdom, which is a little bank. So, you know, a little community bank. So I think I'm going to disappear, maybe, Andreas, for a bit and just let you maybe introduce who you are and a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about the bank. But then I'm happy to come back in, and if people have questions along the way, as we've been doing all day, then just put them in the Q&A and we can present those to you.
Yeah, that's very good. Thanks a lot,
Andreas,
David, for invitation. I'm not sure how much people knew me, because I very often participated the Future South Board meetings. But as I see someone like Begonia or Earl and so on, I know. But some of you obviously the first time in the opportunity to see me. So I'm in my 60s. I'm a banker, and so to say, my professionality or my life is more or less like a social and ecological portfolio driven by banking experience. So that could be the heading for this, and that depends on some important activities I did and I'm currently doing. For example, I was member of the board of Germany's first social and ecological oriented bank, cooperative bank, which called GLS Bank. I was this about more than 14 years, and it was very, very interesting, because we met the interest of the customers, and that was the reason why we multiple awarded as best bank of Germany. And by the way, I'm very interested in all charity aspects of our life, and I'm about 20 years share of a charity company called Caritas in Germany, and I'm also board member of a big cooperative for renewable energy. So, and all this experience should be part of my contribution if we are talking about the development of Hampshire Community Bank. And that's it, what I like to explain a little bit, because it is something what not only I, but a lot of people, and in particular small and mid-sized enterprises, are missing in the UK. So what would be possible if I'm a small and mid-sized enterprise and I have some need of financing and other financial services? The experience they have to face every time is that the big banks are not interested in. And that was the idea many years ago, unfortunately too many years ago, that a lot of people said we have to found a bank, a small size bank, for small and mid-sized enterprises. And that is a little bit similar to that what I experience in Germany, because there is a very huge sector of corporate financed enterprises, and it is something like an open secret that the mid-sized banks and the mid-sized companies are talking obviously better together and finding better solution for both. And that is what we have to face if we are looking to the UK authorities, Bank of England, PRA. From my point of view, there's a little bit of a gap of imagination. So they are very convinced that big banks will solve all problems, but there's not so much experience that tailor-made solutions for small and mid-sized entrepreneurs would be very helpful. So this is the reason why we started the initiative, and we are very lucky to start not only as a project which is keen on application, but we're also running the business live. That depends on the Green for Growth loan, which we are working with, and about many years it was possible to get experience in the business we have to do with small and mid-sized enterprises in Hampshire. So, and if we are looking what is the experience of the people who are on board in Hampshire Community Bank, then it is a very good team playing. On one hand, as I mentioned before, it is a board which is driven by a chair who is experienced as economists. On the other hand, we have some there are some UK bankers from the city in the board, but also UK bankers which are experienced in local banking, and also experts which are running and developing IT for banks, and on the level of executive board, also experienced bankers which are very, very well connected with the business for small and mid-sized enterprises. So like me, and we strengthen this team more and more, so that we also have a huge team of young and smart people who are really eager to join join a banking business from the perspective of a startup. So, which is an exceptional opportunity for young professionals. So, and all these things together might be a good position to start with this banking business. And please let me find some words for the content of that, what we are doing. It is a very, very simple business case. On one hand, our customers are small and medium-sized entrepreneurs from the region of Hampshire. And that is the main focus. That is everything what we are looking for in general. So we'd like to be very close to our customers. We like to know their business model very, very good. And we are able to find something like tailor-made or tailor-bespoke lending. And that is the core idea. And if you are talking about funding, it's funding from all around UK. So mostly the funding will come from privates in the UK via internet solutions, but also from friends and family of the small and medium-sized companies. And what we learned, not only because of COVID and because of Brexit, that these small and medium-sized companies are really in a very difficult position. All of our customers and also the future customers are under the pressure of a gap in financing. So if they are managing and developing a very good idea and they were able to grow, then there is the missing link of financing, and they have to ask friends and family, and that is not strong enough to develop business. So there's always a huge need to solve this problem. And on the other hand, what we learned is that in particular these small and medium-sized enterprises are focused on new business ideas, future-oriented. So that what you are talking on your agenda, what is about the sustainability of a business case, and that is the second part we have to look for. Not only that the enterprises are located in Hampshire and small and medium-sized, but also what is the core of their banking business. And what we are preferring is to have a good mix. On one hand, some small mid-sized enterprises with a good track record, about 3 years or more, because that is important for stability of our own business. and that is also important to find the ones who are able to grow, and on the other hand, to be very open for that what we can call sustainable business ideas. And both the sustainable business ideas and the small and medium-sized of an enterprise is that what we are looking for, and that is the experience of all our team members. And what I learned during the last few years, I joined the team at the end of 2018, and I had a lot of chats and discussions with people who are looking for finance, and it was always the same story. They have good idea. They're running and developing good ideas, but because of the reason that they are very small, there is no interest from the big banks to join. That was a little bit different during the last few months or during the last 1.5 years, because the BBB supported this area with guarantees and so on. So there was an exception at that time because of COVID, and that was good. That was like a proof of our business case, because all these small and mid-sized enterprises were in a better position when they were supported by guarantees from the BBB. But that will find its end, because it was only related to the development through the COVID time. And in the future, I think I'm worried about that there will be a step back again. So everything should be business as usual like the time before, and there will be the gap of financing support again. And therefore we'd like to continue with our activities. Maybe for the ones of you who are more involved in our development, some new information. On one end, what I mentioned before is after the challenge session we successfully did last summer, we followed the recommendation of the PRA that it could be helpful to strengthen the board, and doing a lot for the most compliant board situation. And that was a very successful process, because in the beginning we started as a board team of 3 bankers, one for risk and governance, and one for the finance, and one for the markets. And that is now much better. We were supported by someone who's experienced in banking from the perspective of a bigger bank. We are now working together with a board member who is experienced in local banking. That's obviously also possible in the UK on one hand, and someone from the IT, from the banking IT industry joined also the board, and that is really a good way to strengthen everything what we have to do. The application, the submission of our application will happen this summer, and then everything what's necessary in terms of operations will be implemented. And the only experience we had to face over the long time of preparation is that that the authorities are managing this process very slowly, and so we are not sure what will happen after submission of all documents. They are responsible for a short-term review that has to be more or less latest ready in 6 months, and that would be great for us because then we were able to implement all our operations during second half of this year, and would be able to grow with our business next year. So that's the current situation, and I hope it was a little bit helpful for you to get a very first idea about what we'd like to achieve. And some of you are knowing that we are supported by some city councils and some universities in Hampshire. So it is the need of the region we'd like to support, and hopefully as often as possible, not only for small and medium-sized enterprises itself, but also for sustainable and green and ecological business cases. But that depends on the demand and on the markets we have to face. David, I hope it was helpful for a very first intro.
Thank you, Andreas. We're very grateful. There's a few questions coming in. So let's go with the high level to start with. So if all is successful and the Hampshire Bank takes off and does well, what will the economy or Hampshire look like in, let's say, 10 years as a result?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because that is the opener in our application form. So we are describing what will happen with the economy itself after a successful start of a local bank. Yeah, and that is that the structure of the economy will be much stronger than now. So not depending on only the very big players, not depending on friends and family financing, but also able to be a strong business if you are not the big player and if you are not supported by friends and family. So, and that means that in financial figures, there are reliable calculations, not from Hampshire Community Bank, but from the Bank of England, that there will be a huge contribution for employment. So it might be a better level of employment in the region of Hampshire, and all the figures about that are delivered by the Bank of England. It's not necessary to deliver it from the Hampshire Community Bank.
Thank you. And what will happen to the profits of the bank?
Yeah, so I only can compare this with my experience in Germany. And if at first you have to compare the level of interest and interest margins, and the level of interest margin in the EU zone is much lower. And on the condition of these lower interest margins, it's most of the cooperative banks and saving banks, which are running these mid-size business case, is much better. The profit level of that kind of banks is much better, much higher than like German Bank or DZ Bank or whatever. Yeah. So the small and medium-sized banks are running their business on a higher level of margin and profit, at least. And if we compare this now with the UK, we have to face that the UK margins are a bit better than in the EU zone, and therefore I'm convinced that the level of profit will also be a little bit better. I guess we are talking about at the end about 7% profit level at that point, and German cooperatives are talking about 4 up to 5 profit for the investors.
And so, what will the bank do with the profits then? Will there be money from the bank that goes into community projects, for example?
Yeah, on a first glance, that is always the same story. If you're running the bank successfully, you have some profit, and you have to ask how are working with this profit, with this money of the profit and loss account. But in the very first years, it is most important to put all these money into the equity of the bank, so that we are able to grow. So the profit is one of the engines of the growing process. So we have to, beside the return of the investors, but everything what is not necessary for the investors as a return has to stay at equity in the bank, because that is the source of better growth rates.
Sure, but then that's the startup phase. But once it's up and running, how is it different to a big bank?
Yeah. So it is the difference is that if you are talking about the kind of investors we see or we have to face at Hampshire Community Bank, there is a limited interest for spending the profit to the investors. That's limited. That is not a profit maximization model. So, and therefore we are able to look for different investments when we are a strong bank. So not only the investment in the growth rates for the bank itself, but also for some activities which are strengthen the regional economic, as well as we can do this as a bank. So for example, maybe for some charities or other solutions, so that we can strengthen the activities not only from the perspective of an economic player, but also from the perspective of someone with another mindset or a different mindset. Yeah. So that's also part of the agenda. But to be frank, if we are looking into the business plans of such a startup bank, it is a period about 5 to 10 years to have these kind of steady state, so that the equity is fair enough and you can do more than strengthen your own equity.
No, sure, and I think that's why the question about what would it look like in 10 years, and I think there's a recognition that it's got to be strong to be doing that. But in theory, then some of the things that we've been talking about, and for some of it, the solutions might take 5 years to develop, but there could be investment in environmental technologies or environmental projects then. Strong.
Yeah. So as an example, in the beginning, when we are starting with our lending portfolio, we are talking about a third of the portfolio, which we'd like to be focused on green investments and so on, but under the condition of a more or less reliable track record. Later on, we can move this target a little bit into the direction of a more risky part of the business. So, and that depends also on the growth rates of the bank. Yeah. So in the beginning, it is only an estimation that we are expecting, in particular for the region of Hampshire, that a third of all our activities will be focused on sustainable and green business, but in a more or less reliable, or with a more or less reliable track record. Later on, we can play with these guidelines in terms of risk level and so on.
So a few quick questions and then we'll finish.
So one question is the bank, is it an investment bank interested in investing in technologies and projects, or is it a retail bank?
No.
Or is it?
In terms, it is not an investment bank. Definitely not. Because we were funded by deposits, and therefore, and that is the reason why the PRA is very, very strong and very is managing the process with a high level of awareness, because we have to do everything that the deposits will be secure. So, and therefore we are not an investment bank with investments in high risk and high profitability. So that will not be the case. But as I know from Germany, most of the cooperatives are managing this challenge with a joint venture. So the best way to manage these demand of the customers is to do both. As a bank, financing the day-to-day business, for example, or some special investments in the day-to-day business, but always when the risk level will be higher, or the business case will be a new one or something like this, then you have to have a joint venture with a special entity which is supporting the higher risk investments. And that is also part of our idea, to build up these kind of corporations, so that we are able to be the companion of our customers for the whole life cycle. And if they have more or less big investments on a higher risk level, we can offer a solution on the basis of a joint venture or a cooperation with other companies. That's the typical solution in Germany too. Not each and every savings bank or Volksbank can do this business, but they have their special entities to do this.
So over and over again, we've heard about the importance of a systems level to a lot of solutions today. We've talked about sort of, but you also then, the community bank is taking a much, from what I'm hearing, a greater sort of whole picture, a big picture approach to serving a community, rather than maybe the big banks who cherry pick what they
exactly. Okay. Exactly.
Last couple, is the bank able to loan to SMEs now, or only when
that is what I mentioned. We received this fund from Green for Growth loans, and this fund is still alive. So there is money for lending, but it's not a huge amount. It's not comparable with the full size portfolio of a bank.
Okay.
But we are running our business during COVID very successfully. So most of our customers are not really in trouble. We had some interest holidays or something like this, and that was very helpful. And we did this very individual, and that was also an example for that, what we can do, and what is really the opposite of that, what you know from the big banks.
So last question, with all the experience you've had over the years, is it possible, is there a formula for spotting the SME that's going to grow?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
For all that experience, is it possible to spot the SME that's going to grow? Is there a secret formula for spotting the business?
Yeah, two secret formulas. So on one end, really, if you were companioned by a bank which is knowing your business case very good, that's really the secret. If you are companioned by a bank which is not interested in your business case, you are not really successful. And the second part is, if you are very experienced in managing these customer relationship, you get something in Germany we would say a nose for the right entrepreneurship of the manager of an SME. So that's it.
Just simple.
Very simple.
Andreas, thank you for your time. We are out of time, but I'm very, very, very appreciative of your time with us today. And it's been a long journey. It's been 7 years, I think, so far, and it sounds like it'll be a bit longer yet. And but good luck, and we do hope for the success, because I do think it's one of the pieces of the puzzle that is going to be really important in the future, to have a sustainable bank, both in terms of finance and in terms of ecology, that can contribute to the local economy and not just cherry pick, and to the project and the solutions that we've been doing today.